Bruno Mars is a very popular singer and songwriter who has won praise and admiration from fans all over the world. His exceptional talent, charisma, songwriting skills, and ability to make music that appeals to a wide range of people have made him one of the most loved artists of the 21st century. However, just as his career seemed to be on a steady upward trajectory, Bruno suddenly disappeared, sparking a lot of speculation about why he decided to leave the music scene after years of staying out of the spotlight. After many reports, Bruno Mars has finally come out to say it. Watch this video to find out the truth. Before we get into the specifics, we need to take a look at Bruno Mars's life and the events that led to his sudden departure from the scene. Childhood and the roots of music. He was born on October 8, 1985, in sunny Honolulu, Hawaii. His name is Peter Gene Hernandez, but everyone knows him as Bruno Mars. Bruno grew up in the busy Waikiki neighborhood. His parents were Peter Hernandez, who was Puerto Rican but had Jewish roots from Brooklyn, and Bernadette San Pedro Bayot, who was Filipino but had Spanish roots. His mom was a hula dancer, and his dad played the drums. They met while worked together on stage. Bruno's dad called him Bruno when he was 2 years old because he thought he looked like the boxer Bruno Sammartino. Bruno was one of 6 kids living in a house with lots of music. He grew up listening to a lot of different music, from rock and roll to reggae, hip-hop, and R&B. Little Bruno was really affected by his mom's singing and dancing and his dad's love of Little Richard's music. The sound he would become famous for was built on this mix of different types of music. Bruno's journey into singing began when he was very young. When he was only 3 years old, his uncle, who looked like Elvis Presley, taught him how to sing Elvis and Michael Jackson songs. His family band, the Love Notes, played 5 days a week by the time he was 4 years old. He was a bit of a star in Hawaii because of how well he played Elvis. As a child, he will always remember the time he wet himself during a performance of Can't Help Falling in Love. But hey, that didn't stop him from loving acting. Bruno was only 5 years old when the Hawaiian newspaper Midweek called him Little Elvis in 1990. He also rocked the halftime show at the Aloha Bowl and had a cameo in the movie Honeymoon in Vegas. When he was 6, he was interviewed by Pauly Shore on MTV and appeared on The Arsenio Hall Show. When he was in elementary school, Bruno kept the attention on himself by performing with his family every night, singing Frankie Lyman and Little Anthony songs. He also played a lot of different instruments such as drums, guitar, piano, and percussion, which showed how musically flexible he was. Bruno's life changed a lot when his parents split up when he was 12. The Love Notes were no longer around. The family was having a hard time with money because his dad's businesses were failing. That meant they had to move to less rich parts of Hawaii. They often slept in their car, on rooftops, or even in Paradise Park, an abandoned bird zoo where his dad used to work. Bruno stayed strong and kept going after his singing dreams, even though he had a lot of problems. Being an Elvis mimic really changed how he performed on stage and how he played music. As he got older, he found new musical heroes like the legendary rock guitarist Jimi Hendrix, whose amazing skills made him want to learn how to play the guitar himself. A lot of the time, Bruno thought about how his Hawaiian childhood and musical family had shaped him into the performer we all know and love today. That young boy from Hawaii became the famous Bruno Mars. How did that happen? Let's find out. How to get into the music business. Bruno joined a group called the Schoolboys while he was at Honolulu's President Theodore Roosevelt High School. They played at different gigs, such as opening for his dad's new band and singing old songs by the Temptations and the Isley Brothers. He was a big deal in Hawaii when he was in high school, getting cool jobs like opening for a big magic show and even playing Michael Jackson at a celebrity impersonator event where he made $75 for each act. Mike Lynn, who was in charge of A&R at Dr. Dre's Aftermath Entertainment, heard Bruno's demo through his sister, who lived in Los Angeles. This was his big break. Lynn was so impressed that she asked Bruno to come to Los Angeles in 2003. Following his high school graduation at age 17, Bruno packed his bags and went to further his music career. When he got to Los Angeles, he moved into an apartment on Mansfield Avenue. He was shocked by how poor and dangerous the area was. Bruno Mars was his choice for a stage name. He took the nickname from his childhood and added Mars to make it more interesting. People told him a lot of times that he was out of this world, and he chose this name to avoid being called a Latin artist, which is what the industry tried to do by pushing him to sing in Spanish, which he didn't want to do. A record deal with Motown Records was quickly made for Bruno after he moved to Los Angeles in 2004. He really wanted that deal to give him the big break he was hoping for, but it didn't. He also tried to get in touch with will.i.am's manager, but that proved more difficult. Even though things went wrong at first, his time with Motown was very important for his career. There, he met Philip Lawrence, an American songwriter and director who would be very important to his future. Motown dropped Bruno from their contract just under a year after signing him, which was sad. Bruno finally chose to stay in Los Angeles instead of going back to Hawaii. A song publishing deal with producers Steve Lindsay and Cameron Strang at Westside Independent was made for him in 2005. With Lindsay's help, Bruno learned how to write hit songs with the help of songwriters Brody Brown and Jeff Basker, who he met through Mike Lynn. Lindsay made it clear that being good at singing was not enough to make pop music popular. You also had to understand what made a song really catchy. Bruno and his team had to go through this very important learning phase, even though it took them 5 long years to finally have some big success. At this point, Bruno played in a band called Sex Panther, which also had Basker and Eric Hernandez, who is Bruno's brother. In the end, Eric would join Bruno's band, the Hooligans, as their drummer. If Philip Lawrence first thought about meeting Bruno, he wasn't sure because of money concerns. Neil Harris, the drummer for the Black Eyed Peas, stepped in and offered to pay for Lawrence's trip. He said, "Whatever it costs you to get out here, I'll pay you back." Lawrence joked that he only needed $5 for the bus fare. This help changed everything, and even though things got off to a rough start, Lawrence and Bruno started working together, writing songs and getting turned down by many record labels along the way. Moments of breakthrough. In 2006, Lawrence put Bruno in touch with Aaron Bayshuk, who would go on to work for Atlantic Records as Bruno's A&R boss. Bayshuk was amazed by Bruno's music skills and wanted to sign him right away. He signed with Atlantic in 2009, but it took almost 3 years because they thought he needed more time to grow as an artist. Bruno and Lawrence were almost ready to give up by 2008. Things changed when Brandon Creed called. Menudo was getting back together, and Creed was looking for songs for them. He liked the song Lost, which Bruno had written for himself originally. Even though Bruno and Lawrence didn't want to sell it, they agreed to for 20 grand. With the extra money from this sale, they were able to keep going, and Creed managed Bruno for 9 years. Bruno became famous as a music producer before he became a solo star. He worked with singers like Alexandra Burke, Adam Levine, Brandy, and Sean Kingston. Bruno often talks about co-writing Flo Rida's big hit Right Round in 2009 as a turning point in his career. Besides writing the song Get Sexy with the Sugababes, he also sang background singing on their 2010 album Sweet Seven Slide. Also in 2009, Bruno sang on Far East Movement's 3D from their album Animal. He also worked on Jason Ma's debut song Love and Travie McCoy's charity track One at a Time for MTV's Staying Alive Foundation. Bruno Mars's rise to fame as a solo artist was nothing short of explosive. After a string of great collaborations, he quickly became a well-known singer in his own right. How did his solo career take off? Let's look more closely at his amazing rise to fame and wealth. Putting together music with other acts was Bruno Mars's big break, and it changed everything. His work on B.O.B.'s hit song Nothing on You and Travie McCoy's catchy song Billionaire really showed off how great he was at writing songs and singing. Nothing on You made it to the top of both the Billboard Hot 100 and the UK singles chart, making it a huge hit. This success wasn't just a fluke. It was a clear sign of Mars's skill and ability to make songs that people will remember. Bruno often thinks about these early hits and shares an interesting thought. He thinks that if he had sung the whole track of Nothing on You, it might have sounded like classic R&B from the 1990s, which wasn't the point. Instead, being in the song gave him a chance to shine without taking away from the general vibe, adding his own style to the mix. Bruno's first extended play, EP, It's Better If You Don't Understand, came out on May 11, 2010. It was a big moment in his career because it was the first time he was in the spotlight as a single artist after working as a songwriter behind the scenes. It only got as high as number 99 on the US Billboard 200. It was a big step toward making himself known in the music world. The EP came with a music video for the song The Other Side, which featured duets with CeeLo Green and B.O.B. This made Bruno even more well-known as an artist who could work with big names in the business. As Mars's fame grew, he had to deal with new problems, such as the stresses of fame and the needs of the music business. Getting through these problems became an important part of his trip and tested how strong and flexible he was. The rise in money Bruno Mars's fame kept growing, and so did his money. Billboard reported that he made about $18,330,780 that year, which made him the 12th highest-paid musician that year. That was only the beginning. Forbes started keeping track of Mars's earnings in 2014 and said that between June 2013 and June 2014, he made an amazing $60 million, which put him 13th on their Celebrity 100 list. Mars kept making more and more money. By June 2017, he was placed 6th on Forbes' list of the world's highest-paid celebrities, having made about $39 million from June 2016 to June 2017. The next year, in July 2018, Forbes said that Mars had made a total of $100 million, making him America's highest-paid artist of 2017. He made the 11th most money on the Celebrity 100 list with this amazing number. It was also his biggest annual income to date. The Forbes Celebrity 100 list put him at number 54 in 2019. Between June 1, 2018 and June 1, 2019, he made $51,500,000. However, Bruno Mars's rise to fame was not all fun and games. He also had his fair share of problems and legal fights, just like many other famous people. Let us take a closer look at the legal problems that he faced along the way. The legal event. After a show at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas on September 19, 2010, Bruno Mars got into a bit of a jam. When security saw that he was taking too long in a bathroom stall, they became suspicious and arrested him. Bruno told everyone that he was sorry for his foolish mistake during the whole thing. He said that he was shocked by how things turned out and that the hard time taught him a lot. Because Bruno worked out a plea deal, he wouldn't have to go to jail even though the charges were serious. Instead, he did volunteer work and took classes to learn new things. After Bruno did everything on his list for the plea deal, the charges were dropped in 2012, and he was free to move on. Not only has he moved on from that, but he's also reached even greater heights in his work since then. He used this as a chance to learn, saying how important it is to grow as a person and be strong. Fans look to his story as an example of how to face their own problems and follow their dreams. The copyright dispute among billionaires. But Bruno's court problems didn't end there. A man named Demetrius Orlandus Proctor sued Bruno and the rapper Travie McCoy on January 28, 2014. He said that Bruno, who helped write their hit song Billionaire, stole his work. Proctor said that the rhythm of the song sounded a lot like his own music. He said that he owned the rights to his music and words since March 31, 2011, even though Billionaire came out in 2010. He showed a certificate from the U.S. Copyright Office for a collection called Frisky Volume 1 to 30 tapes to back up his claims. He said that Bruno and Travie were intentionally violating his copyright and wanted all copies of the song to be destroyed, including taking down any illegal downloads and getting rid of any physical copies that were still out there. But things did not go well for Proctor in court. There were some problems with the case that Travie McCoy brought, so the judge agreed to throw it out. For starters, Proctor hadn't properly served McCoy with the case, so the court decided it didn't have power over him. Proctor's case also fell apart because he couldn't say which parts of his work he said were stolen. This was seen as a big problem by the court for the defendants. Even with this legal problem, Bruno Mars's success kept going up. After a short break, his second studio record, Unorthodox Jukebox, came out on December 7, 2012. Bruno did the smart thing by letting fans listen to the whole record a week before it came out. The first week of Unorthodox Jukebox was number 2 on the US. It topped the Billboard 200 list and sold 192,000 copies in its first week. It quickly rose to the top and was number 1 in a number of places, such as Australia, Canada, Switzerland, and the UK. Bruno Mars became one of the biggest pop stars of the 2010s with the release of Unorthodox Jukebox, which sold over 6 million copies around the world. Even though it got some small criticism, the record made it through the music business without any major problems, which made it a huge commercial success. After Bruno Mars's album 24K Magic came out on November 18, 2016, things seemed to be going well for him. But then a new storm erupted around his hit song Uptown Funk. The song, which was produced by Mark Ronson and featured Mars, had already taken the charts by storm 2 years before it got involved in copyright infringement claims. The most famous trouble came from the Gap Band. A member of the band and their producer said that Uptown Funk sounded a lot like their song Oops Upside Your Head. Because of this, they were given credit as co-writers of Uptown Funk and 17% of the publishing earnings. There were still court battles going on about the track, even though the Gap Band got a lot of money from the recognition. While the Gap Band was making their claims, other artists also said that Uptown Funk sounded like their own work. Victoria, a Serbian artist, said that someone copied her song, but she decided not to go to court. Collage, an electro-funk band, sued, saying that Uptown Funk was too similar to their song Young Girls. The Sequence also sued, saying that the track copied their song Funk You Up. To make things even more complicated, La Strada Entertainment pointed out in 2017 that Uptown Funk was too similar to Zapp's classic More Bounce to the Ounce. Even though some cases were dropped over time, the controversy showed how contentious copyright and originality are still in the music business. People who talked about these claims got into more serious topics, like what inspires music and the thin line between paying tribute and copying. Not all critics agreed on what to say. Some people said Mars and Ronson's work was a new take on the funk genre, while others said the track was too similar to other songs in the same style. This made people think about who owns musical styles and how past influences shape current hits. There were also arguments about cultural borrowing because of this event. A lot of people said Mars stole from black artists without giving them credit, but others said his music honored the genre's roots and praised them. During a discussion on The Grapevine, Sensei Aishatu said that Mars was criticizing current work instead of coming up with something new. She said that part of his success was that white viewers were exposed to black culture through the lens of a non-black artist. In addition to the previous problems, the Gap Band's heirs sued BMG, saying that the music company was not paying them royalties for Uptown Funk. They said that even though they were credited as co-writers, the royalties were not being given out fairly, which made the song's legacy even more complicated and brought to light ongoing problems with pay in the music industry. Not only did the legal fights over Uptown Funk affect Bruno Mars, they also started larger conversations about artists' rights, how complicated copyright law can be, and how musical history affects new works. As the music business continues to change, these conversations show how the lines between inspiration, impact, and originality are becoming less clear. The heated court case in January 2021, the hit song Uptown Funk was in the news again because BMG rights management was in a court battle. Robert and Ronnie Wilson, who are the heirs of members of the Gap Band, sued BMG, saying that the company didn't pay them royalties for their work on the famous song that Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars made. The legal mess started in 2015, when Ronnie and Robert Wilson were given 3.4% of the copyright for Uptown Funk as part of a deal. This deal was supposed to be payment for using parts of the Gap Band's 1979 song Oops Upside Your Head in Uptown Funk. The lawsuit said that BMG, which bought Minder Music, the band's publisher, in 2015, did not honor this deal by not paying the royalties or giving the Wilsons a proper account for their share. For breach of contract, the heirs wanted more than $75,000 in damages, plus an extra 9% interest per year going back to 2015. They made it clear that BMG had to properly pay the Wilsons all the money they were owed from Uptown Funk after Minder Music was bought by BMG. But in April 2021, the Wilson heirs dropped the claim without prejudice. This means that they did not end the case for good and could bring it back in the future. BMG defended itself by saying that the claims were not true and made it clear that there had been no settlement or payment made to get the case thrown out. The company said again that it would treat artists properly and be open and honest despite the ongoing scrutiny. The lawsuit made people aware of how hard and complicated it can be to handle music rights and royalties. It also sparked new interest in copyright and fair pay issues in the music business as a whole. The case showed how disagreements over royalties can have a big impact on artists and their families, which made many people question how fair the industry's pay practices are. After the royalties disagreement was over, a new story started going around about Bruno Mars. There were rumors that Mars was having problems with gaming and owed a lot of money, $50 million. People were skeptical about these claims, which led to guesses about how true they were. Bruno Mars hasn't said anything about these claims in public yet. The rumors about gambling and debt might come from the fact that celebrities often have trouble with their personal finances, especially because of the pressures and high-class living that come with being famous. However, the truth of these reports is still unknown, because there is no solid proof or a statement from Mars. As Bruno Mars continues to work on his career despite legal problems and personal rumors, fans and people who work in the music business are left to think about how hard it is to be successful. Royalties, rights, and the pressures of fame are just a few of the complicated issues that artists have to deal with. These issues show how important it is for a business that is always changing to be open and fair. The alleged gambling debt of Bruno Mars. According to stories that came out in early 2021, Bruno Mars was in a lot of trouble because he was said to owe MGM Resorts International $50 million in gambling debt. Perception said that Mars's gaming habits had gotten out of hand, costing him a lot of money. There were rumors that he was using a big chunk of the money he made from his very successful Las Vegas residencies to pay off this claimed debt. A person who did not want to be named added to the story by saying that Mars was basically owned by MGM because of his gambling habits. Naturally, friends, critics, and the media were all very interested in these shocking claims. There were rumors that Mars made about $90 million a year from his Las Vegas shows alone. This made many people wonder how an artist who was so famous could be in such bad financial shape. Bruno Mars was a worldwide success with millions of record sales, numerous awards, and sold-out concerts all over the world. He didn't seem like the type of person who would be going through such tough financial times. The idea that he owed a lot of money from gaming added an unexpectedly complicated layer to his otherwise rosy public image. As soon as the report started to spread, MGM Resorts quickly put out a statement strongly denying the claims. The company said that the claims that Mars owed them $50 million were completely false. They talked about their good relationship with Mars and praised his work as a performer at their venues, including the Park MGM. MGM was proud of their partnership with the artist and reassured fans that the claims that Mars's gambling habits had put them in such a dangerous situation were not true. Even though MGM strongly denied the reports, they wouldn't go away. Some people couldn't put down the story because it was so interesting. Mars had previously talked about his gambling problems in a funny carpool karaoke sketch with James Corden in 2016. He joked that there was a time when he used gambling to pay his bills. Even though he said this in jest, it made people wonder if gaming had ever been a big problem for him. Because gambling can be very addicting and Mars made a lot of money from his Las Vegas homes, some people started to wonder if there was more to the story than what was being told in public. There was a big difference between Mars's public image of being wealthy and successful and the claims that he was in terrible debt, which made the situation even more mysterious. Fans and the media both wondered how someone who seemed to be in charge of their work could be having such tough financial times. Even though rumors about Mars's finances kept going around, he made the news again in 2023. This time, the news was about his musical relationship with Anderson .Paak. The two of them made up the band Silk Sonic. Mars surprised everyone when they said they would not be nominating their record An Evening with Silk Sonic for a Grammy Award. Fans and people who work in the music business were confused by this move, especially since the album had gotten a lot of good reviews and was a frontrunner for several Grammy nominations. Mars's decision to drop out of the Grammy race added another layer of mystery to her public image and made people wonder why she made such a brave choice. People started to wonder if it was a strategic move, a statement against the business, or maybe even connected to the rumors that were going around about his gambling and money. Bruno Mars's rise to fame and fall from grace, including rumors of gambling debts and surprising choices about award nominations, shows how difficult it can be for artists to be in the public eye. The difference between his public success and the rumors about him is a good lesson of the problems that can come with being famous. Mars is still doing well as a performer, but the ongoing story about his money and career choices keeps fans and the media interested. This leads to deeper talks about the stresses of celebrity life and the real life behind the glitz and glam. It's clear that Bruno Mars is one of the most skilled and interesting artists working today. His ability to mix different types of music like pop, dance, and R&B shows how versatile he is and how much he loves music history. Songs like Uptown Funk and Leave the Door Open show how good he is at making catchy melodies and words that a lot of people can relate to. It's amazing how Mars has dealt with the stress of being famous, especially since he's been in a lot of trouble. He doesn't seem to get caught up in public drama. Instead, he seems to put his skill and the fun of making music first, which is nice. His most recent song with Lady Gaga, Die With a Smile, seems to show that he's ready to take on new tasks and keep growing as an artist. It was interesting that they chose to withdraw from the Grammy nomination. He's grown up enough to know that awards aren't the only way to measure success. The effect of his music and the relationships he builds with his fans are also important. It's a good sign that he cares about the music business community that he chose to step back and let other artists shine. There are rumors that he owes a lot of money from gambling. These stories add to his mystery, but I think it's more important to talk about his music than the rumors about his personal life. His shows have always been strong and his music has been good enough to last. Overall, Bruno Mars shows what it means to be strong and creative in a business that can be hard to work in. This is an exciting time for me to see where his life and work take him next. What do you think about him? What do you like best about his songs or public image?